What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Lakers Outsiders podcast. It is May 31st, June 1st, depending on the time zone that you're in. But we are here. Gary Kester here, as always, joined today by Jacob Rude. Jacob, you're in the East time zone. It's kind of late there, but thanks for staying up. How's it going?
It is. It's going great. It's feeling like summertime, getting closer to Summer League in Vegas, so it's going well.
So some fun times wait ahead. So yeah, no, I'm excited for Summer League. But before we get to that, we'll obviously discuss the draft. We'll go over a couple things today. But also joining us is Kyle Hartwick. Kyle, what's going on, man?
I am actually on vacation right now, so I'm feeling pretty good.
Podcasting on vacation? That's against the rules.
I know. I have like the next 6 days off of work, so I'm just like trying to find something to fill in the gaps between the time I have to the time now and the time I have to go back to work. So I figured I'd podcast.
This podcast is versatile. You don't only listen to it; you get to join it on vacation, apparently. So
yeah.
All right. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the draft. Shocker. That's what's next on the agenda for the Lakers. But we do have a special announcement for LakersOutsiders.com. We've had a lot of people guessing over the last few days or so. But we are doing a 2017 NBA mock draft challenge. This is a contest, and the winner of this contest, whoever racks up the most points, and there is a post up on LakersOutsiders.com for all the details, but I'll go over kind of the basics of it. All you have to do to enter this contest is go like Lakers Outsiders on Facebook. That's it. You don't have to pay, register an email, whatever. All you got to do is go like us on Facebook, and there's a post, like I said, on LakersOutsiders.com that has all the rules. The winner of this contest is going to win a $50 gift card to the NBA store online. So whoever the winner is will obviously get the info, and we'll send you the gift card loaded and ready to go with $50 on it. So free contest to join. You might as well try and jump in and get a free gift card and get some NBA gear. So I know I'm going to be asked this, so I might as well address it now. But if there is a tie in this contest, we will do a random drawing of the tied participants live on the podcast, the first podcast that we do after the NBA draft. So just get those in. Like I said, it's on the post. There is a link to a Google Doc that we filled out for you, the table and everything, the pick order. All you got to do is fill it out with how you think the draft is going to go. Fill that out, email it to us at LakersOutsiders@gmail.com, or you can message us on Facebook as well. The email is probably the best bet. That's the one that's going to be a little easier to communicate with. And if you don't have Facebook, I guess send us an email and we'll try and work something out for you. But I mean, most people do. So even if you don't check it very often, just log in there, click the like button on Lakers Outsiders, and you'll be eligible to join this free contest that could win you a $50 gift card to the NBA store. So with that out of the way, let's talk some actual content. It's now, like I said earlier, it's now June. So we're actually in the NBA draft month, about three weeks from today, actually, Thursday. Lakers have the number 2 pick and the number 28 pick. And today we're going to discuss whether we think the Lakers should make a trade with either of these picks. First, we're going to talk the number 2 pick. Jacob, you just posted a 2017 NBA mock draft the other day on LakersOutsiders.com, and you had a lot of trades in yours. So do you want to talk about the trade you had the Lakers making with the number 2 pick?
So it's a trade that I'm sure pretty much everybody's heard on Twitter and whatnot. The mock draft I did, I just kind of mixed things up a bit. Just any trade I could think of, I just kind of threw out there. Just to kind of spice things up. The one I did for the Lakers was the Kings trade the 5th and 10th picks to the Lakers for the 2nd pick. I'm kind of on the fence about whether I think it's a good deal or not, or I guess whether I'm in favor of it. Mm-hmm. Kind of just depends on where the Lakers, who they like when they work prospects out. and just kind of who they fall in love with and whatnot. But it gives them a whole lot of options. They can either have 2 picks for in the top 10 to add 2 really quality guys to the young core, or you can use them as trade ammunition, whether it's for Paul George, or whether it be to try to dump one of Deng or Mozgov's contracts.
Right.
So I mean, it just gives all different kinds of leverage to the Lakers. Just moving those picks and just kind of lets them try a whole bunch of different things out.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because, like you said, it does depend on who they like, who would be there. I mean, they'd be able to get. I think you never know how the draft's going to go, but with the 5th pick, you would think if the Kings agreed to this deal, 2 for number 5 and number 10, you would think the Lakers could get either De'Aaron Fox or Dennis Smith Jr., which I'm a big fan of Dennis Smith Jr. I really like him. I mean, I like Fox probably more than most people. I wouldn't pick him number 2 after kind of studying his game a little bit more. But yeah, you can still get a quality point guard. But personally, I'm not in favor of the trade. No offense to you, Jacob. I mean, I only mean offense to you, like when we're talking Duke and North Carolina. But but no, I mean, I think I'm a big believer in Lonzo Ball and what he can do for this team and really elevate the guys around him. So I think he's the pick at number 2, and I think he'd be a big difference maker, even though he may not be a traditional star that racks up a ton of like all NBA awards or things like that. So Kyle, what are your thoughts on this? If Sacramento calls and says we'll give you the 5th pick and the 10th pick for the 2nd pick, what would your answer be?
So we actually had a kind of a extensive conversation about this in our Slack chat the other day. And I proposed 2 options for the Lakers trading the number 2 pick. One of them was 5 and 10, which I favored heavily over the other option, which was 7 and Zach LaVine. But both are pretty good options there. I think I have firmly landed in the camp of Lonzo Ball at number 2 or bust. But I wouldn't be outraged if the Lakers traded the number 2 pick for 5 and 10. If they did, I think it would be great if if somehow Josh Jackson fell to number 5. But like you said, we would be getting one of Malik Monk or Dennis Smith Jr. at that pick, assuming that the top 4 goes as we all think it would go, or at least the top 3. So, I mean, there's a lot of variables, like you said, with draft night, but I also really just want the Kings to screw up with 2 picks this year instead of just 1 in the lottery, because I'm petty. But yeah, I think I would definitely do a trade of 2 for 5 and 10. It would just it's not my preference at this point.
Yeah, I think the biggest variable really in the draft, or at least in the top 10, is which way Philly goes, right? There's a lot of different ways that people are kind of mocking them to pick. I had them, my mock draft posted on silverscreenandroll.com today, shameless plug, but I had them taking Dennis Smith Jr. I like Josh Jackson. I have him going 4th. I don't think he gets past 4. I think it's an obvious pick for Phoenix, but it's tough because they could go Josh Jackson very easily. They could go De'Aaron Fox. They could go Malik Monk if they wanted to. I think it's a little bit high for Monk, but you never know. So a lot would depend on which way they go. That would kind of shape, probably the next 3 or 4 picks at least. So it's a lot of uncertainty, and that's kind of scary, especially because, to me, the top 2 are, I don't want to say there's a big gap, but there's, a noticeable one after Fultz and Lonzo Ball. Although I don't think Jackson's very far behind. I'm just a little skeptical of his outside shooting still at the, from NBA range, but I don't know. I'm at the point where I think the Lakers like 2 picks in this draft is enough. You know, they've got a lot of young talent. I think they just need some more veterans that are going to make an impact and help these guys, you know, get better and just so a little more established talent that doesn't, you know, pay through the roof like the 2 veterans that they signed last year. So I mean, I'm cool with standing pat at number 2. I think that's such a valuable asset, and I mean, number 5 and number 10 are very valuable together. But I just think Lonzo is going to be a big difference maker if that's who they go with. I think he's such a perfect fit offensively for this team. Defensively, there's a lot of question marks still with the whole team, not just Lonzo. But yeah, I mean, that's where I stand on it. I think the Lakers are in a great spot and they should just stay there. But Jacob, you mentioned the Paul George. I mean, do you think there's any chance that this pick is discussed because I mean, the Lakers will probably at least explore trade talks with him with Indiana this summer, I would imagine. There's no way that they include this pick in those talks, do they?
No, I mean, right now for me, between this pick, D'Angelo, and Ingram, I think this is probably our best asset right now, which isn't necessarily a knock on D'Angelo or Ingram, but I mean, once a player is picked, basically once the pick is used, I mean, it immediately loses some value. There's a certain amount of value a pick holds, just I guess maybe because of the uncertainty. I don't really know why offhand, but I mean, when as the number 2 pick, there's a lot of value. As if it were as Lonzo Ball, there's a lot less value. But regardless, I think at this point there's been enough smoke regarding Paul George. It doesn't seem we haven't heard anything. It doesn't seem like the Lakers are too interested in going and getting him now. I mean, the NBA season hasn't even ended. Free agency hasn't started. Anything could change, but I don't see a scenario where they trade for Paul George, let alone include the number 2 pick in the trade.
Well, there's been reports that, you know, Paul George's camp is telling the Lakers, like, hey, don't give up assets to get me. Like, if Indiana doesn't, you know, get him help, that it sounds like he's, you know, quote unquote hell bent on going back to Los Angeles and playing for the Lakers. But I mean, we'll see. Like, that's a year away, so I would understand the intrigue of trying to get him now, but yeah, I wouldn't trade for him with all the smoke that there's been out of that. And we talked about this on the podcast a couple episodes ago. That you can, if you're interested in that, you can find that on YouTube or iTunes. But yeah, I mean, I think I would try and build this young roster, add another young piece or 2, and create as much cap space as you can for next summer, and just go after him then. But Kyle, we talked about the Kings at 5 and 10. I mean, for Sacramento, it makes sense to just stay at 5 and 10, right? Because they hit the reset button before the trade deadline. They traded away DeMarcus Cousins in a deal that a lot of people thought, you know, they didn't get enough back, but they're like in the early stages of this rebuild. So it makes sense for them to just keep as many picks as possible, right?
Yeah. See, I'm conflicted with that question because the obvious answer in any normal rebuild is yes, you want as many picks as possible so you can take the guys that you want to rebuild the organization. But you also have to remember we're talking about the Sacramento Kings here. And I think them picking players is a disaster.
They're going to draft 2 centers in the top 10.
Well, it's not even their obsession with centers that has me like baffled. I had the guy they picked at 13, Georgios Papagiannis, which I probably just butchered his name, but whatever.
Papa John's.
Papa John's.
I don't think that's it.
I had him as like an outside guy that maybe would fall to the Lakers at 32. Like he was like a late first, early second round guy, in my opinion. And they picked him at 13 in the lottery. which was only the second most bizarre pick in the lottery last year. But I'm trying to see a future for Sacramento that doesn't involve them messing up at least one of those picks. And I could be wrong. Yeah, I know, right? I could be wrong in 2 or 3 years, when both of those guys become all-stars and are competing with the Minnesota Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals. But, based off of everything I know about the NBA, I'm pretty sure they're going to mess up at least one of those picks, if not both.
I think the counter to that would be every rebuild needs a star player to build around. Unless you're really high on Willie Cauley-Stein or Buddy Hield, they don't really have that star player right now.
Buddy Hield's the next Steph Curry, remember?
Yeah. Unless you're Vivek, you're probably not quite as high on Buddy Hield. Lonzo Ball would be that star. And a backcourt of Lonzo Ball and Buddy Hield would be interesting. And it helps. I mean, when you have as many centers as they do, you need someone like Lonzo Ball who can kind of help maximize their talents as much as possible. That being said, I do still think, they're still in the relatively early stages of the rebuild. Outside of Buddy Hield, Cauley-Stein, and whoever the big man, was it Diamond Stone that went there?
No.
Diamond Stone was for the Clippers. Scal Labissiere.
Scal, yeah. Outside of those three, they really don't have a ton of young talent. So it makes more sense for them to keep both picks, but not often do the Kings do the thing that makes the most sense.
You would think
also,
they would.
If they traded 5 and 10, there's also no guarantee that they don't just go ahead and take Lauri Markkanen or whoever at 2. We have no way of knowing what
trade
goes
up
on.
To 2 and take Jason Tatum or somebody that would have been there regardless.
Right. Yeah.
At 5 and 10, you would think. Okay, we'll end this quickly because this is not a Kings podcast. But you would think their job's pretty easy to get. Probably a guard and a wing. That's what they need. They've got a ton of big guys. They got Buddy Hield at the 2 and they really believe in him. But that's why. That's Jacob. I'm glad you brought up Lonzo and just kind of having one player that can really help revitalize a rebuild.
Be the face of it, basically.
Yeah, because that was going to be my next question. And Kyle, I'll throw it to you first. But for the Lakers at number 2, how much we saw it last year at UCLA, and obviously college is very different from the NBA. But we saw a complete culture change with Lonzo Ball there at UCLA, and obviously they had some other high recruits and some guys return. And they had some talented offensive players. But UCLA overnight went from a team that I think was a couple games below 500 to a contender for a national championship. You think Lonzo Ball can have that? Maybe not that type of effect right away, but in maybe a couple years he can kind of change a team's culture.
Yeah, I do want to preface what I'm saying by repeating what you said, that the NBA is different from college basketball. So they were able to bring Lonzo Ball in and a couple other guys and basically just change the entire culture, like you said. But for the NBA, it is different. It would take a couple years. I think he is a special talent. That's the only real way that you can go about talking about him. Is he is, in my opinion, clear top 2 guy in the draft this year. I won't say whether I have him at 1 or 2 to upset the UCLA people out there. But
if the Lakers draft him, he's got to be number 1.
Yeah,
gotta have that Lakers exceptionalism.
Right. But I could see it happening down the line, but I also don't know if we'll ever see it happening, because I'm also one of those people who is hell-bent on the idea that Paul George is coming to the Lakers in 2018. I think he's the guy that completely changes the culture of the Lakers and completely makes us contenders again. I don't think you could really attribute that to Lonzo Ball at that point. But that's a whole different conversation and a whole different scenario that you have to take into consideration. But if Paul George didn't come over, he could definitely be that guy. I think he has the attitude on the court to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in Lonzo, and Jacob, you can talk, a little more about it. You talked a little bit, but I'm just such a believer in kind of his playing style, his mentality. He's so unselfish, and I love that about him. And I think the Lakers could greatly, greatly use a guy like that, because there's just so many times, even in Luke Walton's offense, that guys, kind of develop tunnel vision and try and go one-on-one. There's just, a few players that obviously come to mind, on this roster when I think about that. But, do you think Lonzo can kind of shift the mindset of this team, both individually and collectively, for all the guys, on playing a more unselfish style, a more up-tempo, and, a better brand of basketball offensively?
I do. And I know I spent the first part of this podcast campaigning that they trade 5 and 10. I'm also I'm a big Lonzo Ball fan, because kind of what you said, I do think he can bring a certain culture change. I don't think it was a fluke that he was able to help turn around UCLA this year. There were a couple other pieces that were involved in it, but he was a big part of it.
Yeah, he was the engine to the most efficient offense in college basketball.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a big deal.
That's not a fluke.
Yeah.
And he's tailor-made for the type of offense that Luke wants to run. Just everything about him is a perfect fit for what they want out of a guard. And I do think that he can bring a certain culture change. We saw it at UCLA. Anybody who kind of watched him over the last 2 years, there was a certain amount of I'm not even sure how to really describe it. Players were passing the ball and moving the ball, and it became fun to kind of move the ball, because you knew it was either going to lead to an open shot, or you would get the ball back, or it just kind of became fun to play offense with him. And players run the court harder because they know Lonzo's looking out on fast breaks for them, and they'll cut to the basket because they know Lonzo will see him and stuff like that. So I do think if you draft him, which is what I think will happen, I'd be stunned if it doesn't happen. I'm incredibly excited to see how it plays out, because he'll bring. You were kind of referencing him earlier. He'll bring a totally different skill set than what Clarkson did, especially at the end of the year. Him and D'Angelo in the backcourt will be just miles different than Clarkson and D'Angelo in the backcourt, and it's incredibly exciting to just even think about.
And Lonzo honestly isn't bad when he doesn't have the ball either. Like, he's very good at cutting to the basket and getting shots going towards the rim. That's why he was. That was a big reason why he was so efficient last year. I think his true shooting percentage was like 65 or 66, somewhere in there. It was just absurd as a college freshman. He was, super, super efficient, and he was a good 3-point shooter. I'm hoping that translates to the NBA. He's shown he has ridiculous range. Like, he hit some shots from. Steph Curry range last year at UCLA. So,
and just on the latest Laker Film Room pod, they reference he took I want to say 67 NBA range threes this year, which was like the most by far of anybody kind of in that top group.
Yeah, and I think one of those guys, I can't remember who posted it on Twitter, but I think he shot about 30, I want to say high 30s percentage-wise, like 37, 38
it was,
on those shots.
Right around there.
So that's an encouraging sign. So I've been thinking about this, and we've had this discussion in the Slack a few times, but I have 2 players in mind who I would trade the pick for that, might be somewhat realistically attainable. And you guys probably might take my answers, but Kyle, are there any players out there that might be actually attainable in a trade that you would trade the number 2 pick for?
LeBron James.
Just ignore the actually attainable part.
Yeah, right. Wow, I actually I actually really don't know. I mean, an actually attainable person that we all probably know that is out there, I don't know if I would personally do it, but Jimmy Butler has popped up as like the guy that the Celtics would give up a bunch for, or people would give up a bunch for. But I mean, I don't know if that's realistically attainable for the Lakers without giving up more assets than I'd be willing to.
Right.
Man, I don't know. I actually loop back to me because I have to think about this.
He was one of the two guys I was thinking of because
Okay.
he's been in a lot of trade rumors and stuff. So I don't know how serious the Bulls are about trading him. But yeah, like you said, it would be really tough for the Lakers because they'd have to give up a lot because Jimmy Butler has a few years left on his contract. It's actually a very good contract because he signed the 25% max before the cap exploded. So his contract is actually really, really valuable. And the Bulls aren't in a hurry. Like, they don't have to be in a hurry to trade him like Indiana might be with Paul George. Like, they have until February if they decide to trade him to try and get something in return, you know? So with the Bulls, they don't have to do that. You know, they could call Boston and say, hey, this is what the Lakers are offering if you guys want to offer more, so on and so forth. So, but Jacob, before I say my other player, you might know who it is. I mean, I've said it to you a few times, but any players that you would trade this number 2 pick for that might actually be realistic trade targets?
I mean, I don't think I'd trade it for Butler because whatever the asking price is for Paul George, it's that and then a lot more for Butler for all the reasons you mentioned. Trying to pull up. I don't know if CJ McCollum's the one you're thinking of, but I also don't know that Portland would do that necessarily. Other than that, I'm not really sure who I'd trade it for.
The only other guy I was thinking of, and I don't know how realistic it would be because you just never know what's going on behind the scenes. But he's a guy that's very disgruntled with his team right now, and that would be Kristaps Porzingis.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know if the Knicks are even entertaining the idea of trading him because he's upset with the franchise right now and how they're kind of running things there. But if they called and they said, we'll give you Porzingis for the number 2 pick, and I don't think, like, if I were the Knicks, I wouldn't trade Porzingis for the number 2 pick straight up. Because Porzingis is a proven, like, really young, talented player. Like, we've seen 2 years of his play, and it's been beyond encouraging. So you'd be trading it for a completely, not a completely unknown, but you know what I mean? Like somebody who hasn't played a second of NBA basketball yet.
Somebody who knows how to play the triangle.
Yeah. So, like if I was the Lakers though, and they called and said, we'll take Jordan Clarkson and the number 2 pick, and we'll give you Porzingis and a filler to make the money work. I mean, I would jump on that trade in a heartbeat because I think Porzingis with Brandon Ingram and D'Angelo Russell, like those three together, like Russell and Porzingis pick and rolls or pick and pops with Ingram on the wing. Once Ingram kind of figures out his shot, like I think he will. I mean, that's like a basketball wet dream right there.
And he covers up any issues Randall has on the defensive end as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was one of my biggest questions with Porzingis coming in was how was he going to be defensively? And just when they played in LA last year, I was so impressed with his rim protection. He already kind of understands how to use that length and his athletic ability. And I mean, I was really impressed. And the Lakers could use that. Because he can play the 4 or the 5, and he can stretch the floor, can protect the rim. Like that's what the Lakers could really use. Again, I don't know how realistic that is. I would say probably, 15-20% chance that the Knicks are even thinking about, entertaining trade offers, but that's him and Jimmy Butler are 2 guys I would trade the pick for, but with Butler, like we said, it would cost a lot more than just the number 2 pick. So that's why I think ultimately that would be really tough to make a deal happen without giving up too much.
If the Knicks called and asked that, the Lakers should not hang up the phone and just immediately patch in the league office before anybody gets to Phil Jackson. because at that point he's probably barricaded himself in the office trying to find someone to take Porzingis. But yeah, I mean,
David Stern would be rushing to to get to the
veto another trade. Basketball reasons. Yeah.
Gosh.
Would you guys? I mean, this is we're talking about trading away like half the roster here, but would you guys trade the number 2 pick and Julius Randle for Porzingis?
Randle's coming up on a really big extension. I think I might. That'd be tough. I definitely do the number 2 pick in Nance, but I'm a lot higher on Randle. Well, not a lot higher. Just in general, I'm higher on Randle than Nance. But yeah. I still think I would probably do it. Porzingis is really good.
Yeah.
But Randle's like actually the Hulk now, so I don't know.
Let's wait until the end of the summer and see what his final form is once he comes to training camp, and then I'll answer the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, for those of you listening, if you haven't seen Julius Randle's body transformation in the last few weeks, Google it or try Instagram. I mean, dude's completely changed his body in 3 weeks. I mean, that's why I love Julius Randle. You know, he's got some obvious limitations in his game at this point, and he's still young. But I love how hard he works. I love his work ethic, and that's why I ultimately trust that he's going to be a quality player. I don't know what his ceiling is exactly, but man, I love the kid's work ethic, and I've always been such a big fan of his. Even, you know, Jacob, you and I both hate Kentucky, but I liked him at Kentucky, and I was very happy when he fell to 7. I mean, I like Julius. I'm a believer in him, but yeah, Porzingis would be tough. Would be tough to pass on. I'd have to really, really look deep into that one before I pull the trigger on that. But
I think I'm just mostly hesitant in trading any of like the core young guys for anyone, just because of how you said they're all really incredibly hardworking guys, always in the gym, always shooting around, and then they're just really tight knit. I feel like if you traded away one of them, the other 2 or 3 would be super bummed out. You know, maybe not playing the best that they could because they miss their friend. So. I'm hesitant. I wouldn't say I wouldn't do it because Kristaps Porzingis is a freaking unicorn, but it would be like a bittersweet moment for me. Like I'd probably do that trade. But
I'd be very sad to see Julius go. Like Clarkson makes me want to pull my hair out sometimes. Sometimes he plays really well, and other times he just pounds the ball into the floor and drives into the lane into 10 bodies or 8 bodies, whatever. 9 bodies, and it's just frustrating. So, but yeah, Randle he'd be tough because I've always been a big fan of Julius. But you guys have any other number 2 pick trades that you kind of have on your mind that you might consider if you're the Lakers?
I brought it up earlier. I just kind of went past it, but would you entertain Seven and Levine from the Wolves for number 2? Or would that be too little? I don't know what everyone's feeling about that.
That'd be really tough, especially because Levine's coming off, I believe, a torn ACL.
Right.
Although I think Levine's a really, really nice young player. I don't know exactly how he would fit with D'Angelo Russell, because Levine, to me, there's certain issues that are kind of similar to Clarkson. Like the decision making sometimes to me is really suspect, but he's got tremendous athletic ability. I don't know, I don't have it in front of me what he shot from 3 last year.
He was really good. I'll look at it real quick.
So I mean that'd be nice because Clarkson has kind of plateaued from the 3-point line. I think he's usually around 34%, but. Personally, I would say no, just because I really think Lonzo is a piece that could really accelerate this rebuild and really enhance the skill sets of the guys on the team already. So that's really tough because you can get a really good player at number 7 still.
Levine shot 38.7% from 3. Wasn't quite as good as I thought, but
that's still really good.
Still, yeah, for a third-year player, he's only 21. but I mean, even I don't think I could do it because of the injury. If it was fully healthy, I think I might. It'd be a lot tougher to say no to.
Yeah, the injury scares me. I mean, the ACL injury is just for certain guys. I mean, it's some guys can get over it and they can bounce back from it, but for some guys it haunts them forever, you know. So, and it leads to just problems down the line. But yeah, that's one that's really intriguing. But I think I would probably pass just because like I said, I'm just a believer in what Lonzo can do for this core group.
Yeah, I'm basically the same. I mean, Lonzo's just such. I mean, I said it before. He's such a perfect fit for what they want. I mean, the only thing I think I might entertain is 5 and 10, but I mean, they would have to have really fallen in love with like De'Aaron Fox or somebody like that, and also, maybe not been as impressed with Lonzo or something like that. But I mean, nothing would indicate that they're even a little bit down on Lonzo. I mean, everything they've said, Magic compared him to himself. I mean, everything they've said, I don't think in the end, I don't think I'd trade the pick. And I think you take Lonzo and just kind of run with it.
Yeah, and there was a rumor today that I think it was from Steve Kyler of Basketball Insiders, who we've had a run-in with, but he was saying that he's kind of hearing stuff that Lonzo would have to blow the Lakers away in their workout scheduled for June 7th. I honestly don't buy it because, like you said, Jacob, they have raved about his play and his mindset, his mentality. And they've really, with the whole LeVar Ball thing, they've really downplayed it and said it's not going to be a problem. And I tend to agree with that. I think, ultimately he'll be fine. Like the LeVar thing won't be a huge deal, although it has the potential to be one, which is kind of scary. But I think that'll be fine, honestly. But yeah, no, I mean, it would take a pretty big offer for me if I was, in charge of this sort of thing, which is a scary thought. But yeah,
nothing Lonzo's. I mean, nothing about Lonzo's play style would make like that report doesn't make any sense to me. Like nothing about Lonzo's play style would suggest that he's not a great fit for the Lakers. I don't know why they would need to be blown away. I mean, if they watched him pretty much at all during the season, they would have been blown away.
Was it a report or just tweets?
I don't know. Yeah, regardless of what it was. I mean, I don't buy it. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
It could just be smoke from the Lakers too,
I mean, it could be smoke from some other prospect agent.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't really buy it. But let's talk number 28. We've talked about number 2 for a while here, and I think we're all in agreement that it would take a pretty big offer to move out of that pick. But let's talk number 28 pick. This one is really interesting because I think this is a much more tradable piece because at the same time, it's not as valuable, but it still has value as a first-round pick. And, I mean, Kyle, is it realistic to think that this is an asset that the Lakers can attach to a contract of Timofey Mozgov or Luol Deng to trade one of them and get rid of their contract?
I don't know if it's enough. I think it's definitely something that the Lakers would consider an asset to be moved with a contract, but I don't think teams would take just 28 and Deng or Maz. I think it would have to take a minor piece of our young core, like a Larry Nance Jr., or if they're really gung-ho about taking on contracts, they can take on Jordan Clarkson, who has a pretty sizable contract as well. Or if they're high on Zubats, they can take him. But I don't think 28 alone does it, but I think it's something the Lakers should explore their options with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jacob, we've talked about this before on the podcast. I don't know. I think for this, you'd have to find a team that, either just has a guy that they love at that spot, and it would probably be something that, like, when the Lakers are about to be on the clock, and it seems like, hey, if this guy isn't picked, we'll do this deal or something like that. But I mean, you got to find a team that's really kind of willing and almost, I don't want to say desperate, but really in need of adding young talent, like Brooklyn, for example.
Yeah, Brooklyn's the only. I was going to say Brooklyn's the only team that would make sense.
Because they have a ton of cap space. Like they don't have many long-term contracts on their on the books.
And they need. I mean, I would call them desperate for talent.
Yeah, because they gave all their freaking picks to Boston.
I mean, they need in any way, shape, or form. I mean, the mock draft I did, I don't know exactly how many times I had them picking, but I had the Nets taking on just about any contract they could. I think Bill Simmons said it. I mean, that's 100% what they should be doing. They should be trying in any way to take on. I had them with 4 picks in the first round. I mean, I'd be calling up anybody. I had them trading for Evan Turner with the 20th and 26th pick. And I had them, I don't remember what the other one was, but I mean, if I were them, I would be calling teams like Portland, who I think it came out that they might be looking to get rid of a contract to clear up cap space. I mean, I'd be calling teams like that and say, hey, we'll take a couple or a first-round pick and an Allen Crabbe or something like that from you guys. But no, I don't think 28th pick by itself in this draft, and I don't know that any draft would be enough to get rid of 3 years of Mozgov or Deng. Maybe next year if we had a first-round pick, but not with 3 years on the deal.
Kyle, which player do you think is more likely to be unloaded in a deal like that where the Lakers attach, say, maybe 28 and like Nance or something like that? Do you think it's more likely that they can get rid of Deng or Mozgov?
Deng, because I think he's a far better player, but that's also my former Chicago Bulls fan speaking out here because he was my favorite player growing up. But I also...
You got poor taste, man.
Man, I had to choose between him and Derrick Rose, so like I didn't have a Kobe, just whatever. But I don't think of Dane as much of a corpse as everyone else does, especially because I watched some games probably like mid to late way through the season where he actually showed some signs of being a decent role player, other than his obvious glaring issue of the contract. But I think the Nets specifically would probably mind taking on Dane less than Mozgov. But I also I can't get past Mozgov's contract. Just in my mind, it makes me rage a little bit every time I think about it.
And it would depend too on the team with Deng if they have room at the 4. Like that's the big issue with the Lakers right now is that they have, Julius Randle and Larry Nance Jr. already at the 4, like 2 of your young foundation pieces. And, Deng is kind of stuck playing a lot of the 3 with Ingram, and there's just not a lot of room for him at the 4. Like you can play Nance at the 5, and he's still a decent rim protector with his athletic ability. You can play Randall at the 5 a little bit. I don't really like him at the 5 all that much. You can switch a lot of things defensively, which is good, but then you have like no rim protection. And you also have Ingram that can play the 4 a little bit too, depending on the matchup. Like if a team's going like small and going with like a speed lineup or something like that, then it makes sense to have Ingram at the 4 and kind of stretch the floor a little bit more. But yeah, I mean that's tough. That's tough because it would really, like I said, depend on if anybody can squeeze him in at the 4, because the Lakers still have Timofey Mozgov if they don't make a trade. Ivica Zubac, who came on strong last year, he was far better than I thought he was going to be as a rookie. And then you have Tariq Black. Tariq Black has a non-guaranteed contract in the $6 million range, I believe.
6.6. I'm looking at it now.
Which I guess that's a piece too that you might be able to. I mean, you might be able to attach in a trade like this because if a team likes Tariq Black, they can keep him on a pretty good contract for 1 year, or they can just let him go and clear cap space. So Yeah, I mean that's tough. Jacob, which one do you think is the more tradable contract?
See, I'm kind of split. I'm not really. I mean, I think both of them at times showed some signs of life. I think the player who they should trade more would be Mozgov, but I think the player that is, see, I don't know. Ding's contract's also bigger. I think Mozgov might be a little bit more tradable. Even with the way the league's going, you still need a big man like that. I mean, he looked good. And I think he's the one you probably should be looking to trade because you have Tarek Black right there with, it's $10 million less is what he's making. And he was, I would say, a better player. And it clears a huge chunk of the logjam because if you get rid of Mozgov, if you don't bring back Thomas Robinson, you have Tarek Black, and then you have plenty of playing time for guys like Randall, Nance, and Zubats at the 5.
Yeah, I mean, we all remember that third quarter in Utah the second time around where Mozgov just tried to take the game over, right? I don't know if you guys remember that. That's like the main thing I think about with Mozgov this season. He just went on like this stretch where like they couldn't stop him. It was like the greatest thing ever.
Although the only thing I remember is he missed like 18 dunks.
Oh yeah, that too. But no, like if you're the Lakers, like and you're like on like a video conference call like with another team and you're trying to trade Mozgov, you just show like that highlight reel of that third quarter. See, he's got some juice left.
Put some instrumental music behind it. Make a little mixtape of that one quarter.
Yeah. Show the graphic on, I don't remember what channel it was, but they had scored like 60 something points when he was on the Nuggets.
Yeah, and he had 93 rebounds.
Yeah. Just show them that graphic.
Yeah. He still got it, man. No, I mean this is a really tough question because the contracts are very similar. Dang makes a little bit more.
It's about $2 million more per year.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think it'll be easier to trade Mozgov based on just last year. And, I think teams would look at that a lot and see like, okay, how they do, this most recent season. And I thought Mozgov was just more effective overall. I think, there were times he was still, a decent NBA player. Not worth $16 million, but
no. I was just going to say, I think there's a place in the league for Mozgov still. I just don't think I don't think it's the Lakers. I think they might have thought he could be their Andrew Bogut with this new offense, and he can't pass like Bogut can. He can't quite defend as well, but he's still. I mean, I still think he'd be starter quality. He could be your backup big man on a playoff team, even though that's a lot of money to pay a backup big man. But still, I mean, I still think there's a place in the league for Mozgov where he's an effective player on a good team.
Right. And the thing with these two contracts is the Lakers don't necessarily have to trade both of them. If they can get rid of one, that's a big deal because you can always – you could stretch both contracts. But at this point, like if you stretch them this summer, you'd be paying each of them for 7 years, Yeah. So, I think it would be around 6 to 8 million, somewhere in there for 7 years.
I believe it's just under 7 million for the next 7 years each, roughly.
Yeah. So, if you can get rid of one and stretch the other, that might be the best case scenario here because I don't know if they're going to be able to unload both relatively quickly. I think maybe when, they have 1 year left on the deal or maybe even 2 years, possibly. But I don't know. Do you think with this number 28 pick, how far can the Lakers move up? Like if there's a player that they see still on the board or maybe slipping or, something like that, how far do you think the Lakers can use this pick, the 28th pick, and say maybe Clarkson and Nance or Clarkson or Nance, whatever combination you want to talk about? Like how far can they move up with the 28th pick and trading that?
If you're using Nance, I say that only because his contract's a lot more trade friendly. I mean, I think you could get to the edge of the lottery, if not maybe a late lottery pick. I mean, Nance is a guy who I think could be a rotation player on a playoff team. And I'm trying to look. I mean, maybe Miami at 14. Portland has 3 picks, 15 or 20. I think that they would trade one of those.
Yeah, I feel like 20 would be probably a little more.
Yeah,
like that's probably certainly what they would lead with.
Or maybe the Hawks at 19 with Millsap leaving. But I think you might be able to get to the late lottery. But, I mean, they'd have to really be in love with the guy to trade the 28th pick and a proven piece to get what is essentially an unproven piece.
Well, you've got an Indiana shirt. Indiana's got a player in the draft that might go in that range. So
I would take OG. I would take OG with the second pick.
I have him going number 10 overall, but hey.
When healthy, he's a top 10 talent, but he's also probably going to miss the whole season. So he could slip to the Lakers at 28, depending on kind of how bad the injury is and how long the wait's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Like we saw Skal Labissiere drop almost out of the first round last year, and I mean, I didn't see that coming. Like a lot of people were down on him, but not that down on him. Well, apparently NBA teams were, but
yeah.
But Kyle,
we were talking about it beforehand. This pick's so hard to predict because somebody just plummets every year, or multiple people, and just there's so many options between teams reaching and players falling, and this pick's really hard to kind of gauge.
Yeah, I mean, you could have a guy like Thon Maker get picked 10th overall. Like that's something that nobody can predict. You know,
and nobody predicted Zubac to the Lakers.
Yeah, no. Kyle, I mean, how far can the Lakers move up? Or, I mean, Jacob, and you can add on to this after Kyle, but because you talked about this in your mock, I believe. You think they can use this pick to get a first from a playoff team in next year's draft?
Probably more so the second one. The main issue I have with the Portland trade that Jacob and you were talking about is they have major cap issues. So we would either have to alleviate them of some cap or just you have to basically eliminate Clarkson as an option for them because they can't acquire him.
Yeah.
But I was thinking an Indiana trade that doesn't involve Paul George, maybe like Indiana's last ditch attempt to is trading 18 for 28 and whoever the Lakers want to give up there, like Nance or Clarkson or whatever. But I don't know. I feel like what you said is more true, that they would probably be able to get a future first from a playoff team current first.
Yeah. Yeah, and that would be big for the Lakers because they don't have a first rounder in next year's draft.
Right.
Like,
it certainly make what they can do as far as trades go more versatile. Because having that pick, isn't there like it's the Stepien rule, something like that, where you have to have a pick, or you can't
have a first round pick every other year.
Right. So like if we acquire a 2018 pick, then we can make the 2019 pick movable or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it would still be a low first round pick. So it'd be a team that expects to be, you know, a contender rather than just a 7-8, you know. So I feel like they could get something done with that playoff team, but you know, it honestly depends on the situation.
Yeah. And Jacob, in your mock, I believe you had them trading the pick to a team that is probably looking to go all in next year.
Yeah, the team I had, and really, I mean, I think it might make the most sense, was the Pelicans. The Pelicans don't have any other future first-round picks owed after this year. They have, obviously, Boogie and AD, but they don't really have a lot of cap space, especially if they give Drew Holiday
Close
a
to
big
max
contract. Yeah, I think he'll probably get close to max money this summer. I mean, that pretty much, unless they're able to find a taker for Omar Ashik or somebody like that, Solomon Hill, I mean, that pretty much kind of caps them out. So if they can, what the trade I had was just simply trading the Lakers trading a 2017 first for a 2018 first. I mean, the Pelicans have pick number 40. You can maybe swindle that out of them too. And I mean, the main reason for it is exactly what Kyle said. It gives them a lot more flexibility for trading future picks. You don't have to worry about, well, we can't trade the 2019 pick or we can't do this or that. I mean, there's a lot of flexibility, and it kind of levels things out a little bit because, I mean, you're back to having another first-round pick next year, and you don't miss a beat quite as much as just simply not having a first-round pick. And especially if you can get like the 40th pick, and we've seen how good the Lakers are at drafting in the second round. And they've been bringing in a whole lot of guys that kind of would be
like fringe first, early second.
Yeah, that would kind of be in that range. So maybe it's something that they're considering. It's probably more just them doing some due diligence. But I think I know Anthony mentioned it before he left of the last pod. The Lakers, and I think we mentioned it earlier, the Lakers have a lot of young talent. And at a certain point, you have too much young talent. You need
that
kind of veteran players.
Yeah.
And right now, I don't have their roster pulled up, I don't think. But, I mean, you're looking at a pretty full kind of rotation, especially if you had Lonzo Ball, of young players. Yeah, I mean, Clarkson's a young player. Tariq's probably considered a young player. Russell, Ingram, Randall, Nance, and Zubats. I mean, that's
and David Nwaba too.
Yeah, Nwaba, and then you're adding Ball. I mean, that's 9 guys right there that are probably locked. Well, maybe not Tariq. 8 guys that are locks for the roster next year right off the bat. And that's not counting guys like Brewer, Ding, or Mozgov. I mean, there's 11 guys right there, and you don't really have a whole lot of room to continue adding young players.
And another thing I wanted to add about your trade idea, a lot of people might look at that and say, oh, why would New Orleans trade, a first-round pick that could be like fringe lottery, top 10 for the 28th pick in this draft? I think obviously in that type of scenario, it would be a protected pick to a certain extent, like top 10 protected or lottery protected. And even so, like that could still be a valuable asset to the Lakers if it was conveyed next year. So I really like that idea, Jacob. I like trying to get a first in next year's draft if you can. I mean, unless there's a player on the board that you just like so much that you just we got to take this guy, and there's going to be a million different ways that mock drafts are going to have that number 28 pick going, because you just don't know who's going to be there. And this is an interesting draft because there's a ton of 4s and 5s. So I think a lot of teams, you might see teams reach on guards and wings to try and get them when they can. And then come back to the big guys because there's such a surplus of them, and really there's not a ton of depth with guards and wings in this draft. So that'll be something that's really interesting to watch, because that could really throw kind of the draft order for a loop. If say somebody drafts, I don't know, just a wing that's projected in the 20s, like a shooting guard like Terrence Ferguson, for example. That guy's projected anywhere from 15 to 30. So like if a team picks him at 15, that's kind of out of order, I think, from how a lot of people view this draft. So like things like that can happen. But speaking of mock drafts, I'm going to plug our contest again for those of you that weren't here live when we started. LakersOutsiders.com is doing a free mock draft challenge. All you have to do to enter this free challenge is like us on Facebook and just go to LakersOutsiders.com. There is a link posted on there right now, how to enter the contest, the scoring system, all the details that you need. There's even a link on there for a Google document, just a Word document that's already put together for you with the draft order, All you got to fill out is the players and what order you think they're going to be picked. And that's it. And then you just send it to us either through LakersOutsiders@gmail.com. That's going to be the best method. Or you can message us on Facebook as well, and we'll be able to see it there. If you tweet it to us or something like that, it might not get seen just because sometimes the mentions are going nuts and sometimes they're not. But so yeah, definitely I would say email is the best method, or Facebook messaging. So that, again, that's a free contest, and the winner of the contest will get a $50 gift card to the NBA store online at nbastore.com. So I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be exciting. You guys have anything else you want to add? Maybe some trade ideas before we sign off here?
I already won the contest, everyone, so you don't really have to worry about anything.
Kyle already won last place. He's paying me $50.
Oh, yes. About that.
No, I think we've covered a lot of ground today, and I mean there's a lot of different things that can happen on draft night. So put your feet up and just watch the show, because if it's anything like last year's draft, after like the top 8, there were so many trades. And it was chaotic, and it was a lot of fun. It was kind of hard to follow, but it was a lot of fun, and I'm excited. The draft is 3 weeks away, June 22nd. I'm pumped. Lakers have 2 first-round picks, and they can go a lot of different ways with them. So, as always, guys, if you like the podcast, you can subscribe to us on YouTube here. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes. And if you like the podcast, you can also give us a review on iTunes. We greatly, greatly appreciate reviews on iTunes. That would really help us out. You can also find the podcast on SoundCloud and Podbean. So there's also obviously on LakersOutsiders.com. You can like us on Facebook. That's what you got to do to enter the contest anyways. You can follow us on Twitter as well at Lakers Outsiders. So there's plenty of ways for you to access the podcast and all of our content. We're staying on top of all the draft workouts and interviews and stuff like that. Lonzo Ball's workout is 6 days away now, less than a week. So yeah, exciting times. Jacob, Kyle, you guys are ahead of me in the time zone, so I want to thank you guys for coming on. It's kind of late on a weekday, although I feel like we're always up. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We had actually a really big audience live on this. The YouTube comment stream was going so fast I couldn't even read it. So we love the feedback, and I do read that as well as I can. So that's going to do it for us. I believe our next podcast, which hopefully will be in a couple days, we are going to do a full first-round mock draft where we all get to play pretend GMs. So that's always fun. You can all yell at us when we do that. But again, thank you everybody for tuning in. If you have any questions about that contest, feel free to contact us on social media or email us at LakersOutsiders@gmail.com. Until next time, with Jacob Rude and Kyle Hartwig, this is Gary Kester signing off.